We're going to start with our gathering music, and that is Come, Come, Whoever You Are. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. One more time. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Aloha. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Honolulu, where we strive to build the beloved community and boldly grow compassion, justice, and joy. It is good to be together and share our hearts. We are glad that you are here. I extend a special greeting to visitors and newcomers this morning in the building and on Zoom. For those in our sanctuary, please join us right after the service for light refreshments and fellowship so that we can talk story and get to know you better. My name is Karen Fothergill, and my pronouns are she, her. I have the honor of being worship associate today with our worship leader, Keola Whittaker, for whom I am so grateful. I'm looking forward to your message today. We extend aloha to all for choosing our congregation to worship in today. And we will light our chalice. Keola will light our chalice for us today. The Great Turning. As we light this chalice, we kindle the spirit of the Great Turning, the movement for justice alive in this nation today. May we feel it in our bones, and in the stillness of this hour, may we sense it calling our name. From the power of our memory and history, with high hopes for the days that lie ahead, we gather to craft the destiny we share with one another. We gather with faith in the practice of democracy. We gather with hearts and minds open to the wisdom in every voice among us. In our gathering, may we dream and design a bold future. May we bring our best selves to this service, and may we dream these dreams and do this work with love. That was the call to worship at GA. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker, Keola Whittaker.
Hi, good morning, everybody. It's nice to have an intimate setting. I know that's what you're doing this summer. It's kind of like a social justice summer, right? And while we were singing a cappella, I couldn't help but think that this is kind of how early worship meetings started, right? Just people gathered together in small groups, singing a cappella and learning from each other. So I'm here to talk about what happened at General Assembly, the UUA General Assembly, and I'm fully aware that this can be a little insidery, right? So just for my knowledge, I won't call you out. Is anybody here that's new today, or maybe your first or second service? No? Okay, we've all been here before. That's great. So I want to do more than just tell you what happened at GA. I think that would be kind of boring. I want to take you there. And one of the ways I want to take you there is to offer you an extended reading of one of the lectures. There's kind of two main lectures that happen at GA, the FOS lecture, and then there's another lecture, the Where lecture, thank you. So I'm going to do a reading from the FOS lecture because I found this reading particularly inspiring, or this sermon. So this lecture is named for religious educator and activist Sophia Lynn Foss. And one of the people that gave this lecture this year was Reverend Sean Neil Barron. He's a minister from Fort Collins, Colorado. I've seen him speak now several times, and I think he's one of the best speakers in our tradition, an amazing speaker, somebody that I learned from just by watching. So let me set the scene of this reading I'm going to give. So Sean went to Pride in his town dressed as a minister and offered blessings as a minister during the Pride Parade. Then later on, he took off his minister garb and went to a drag show that night with his husband. And he was in like a mesh shirt, completely out of minister garb, but somebody recognized him and comes up to him and says, weren't you the minister at Pride? So in this moment, he was ready for the drag show, not really ready to be a minister, but she gave him compliments, and that begins this conversation. So now we're going to start into his sermon. So he says, back at the bar, it still smells like stale beer and possibility. I'm clutching my drink, stumbling to figure out what the hell to say, and my husband, who is used to my social inadequacies, introduces himself to the woman who has just said a nice thing about me and caused me to seemingly malfunction. This prompts me to remember what the socially appropriate thing to do next is. My name is Sean. What's yours? It's so small, but you know that moment when someone not only asks your name, but 3 weeks later, when you run into them at the grocery store, they pull it right out. Hey, Sean. And suddenly you think to yourself, holy shit, I'm worth remembering. I'm not just another face in the crowd. I'm not just another interchangeable human being number 4,721. I'm me, and somehow that matters. It's so small, but it changes everything. Because when I know your name, conversations start to deepen. I might get to hear what you like to do, what makes your heart race with excitement. As trust builds, I might get the privilege of learning where you're really from. Not just the zip code, but who shaped you, what broke you open, and what put you back together. And then when I know where you're from, I might hear the raw edges of your pain, what keeps you up at night, which always leads to glimpses of the powers hiding inside of each of us that might change everything. It's so small. Just remembering a name, just asking what matters, and just listening to someone's story. But here's what I've learned. When you take someone's grief and mix it with power, adding their deep, give it time, you don't get followers. You don't get volunteers. You start to assemble a family. And family is messy, and family is beautiful. And as Reverend Elizabeth Wen reminds us, we fight like hell for family. And that's why you can't organize strangers, because strangers don't bleed for each other, but people who know each other's names, who've heard each other's stories, who've seen each other's scars and gifts, who have invested in each other, they do. Later in the essay, Sean continues, for years you will show up boring, dull, confusing community events where you feel like a complete outsider. You'll have this resistance to relationship. Some of you will be trying to figure out the right people to connect with are, and you'll make judgments that will shut doors before they even open. Some of you will be so timid that you won't think you're worthy of being known, convinced that you have nothing to offer, nothing interesting to say. Some of you will try to take control of the agenda in whatever encounter you find yourself in, so addicted to the allure of productivity and control that you can't just be present. You'll walk into rooms where everyone seems to know each other, rooms like this, and you might think, they don't want me here. And you might be right. But if you keep showing up, keep stumbling awkwardly, making mistakes, making amends, focusing on actually getting to know the people in this community, because you know there are people in this community, right? If you keep doing this time after time, you will feel after a while that you've accomplished absolutely nothing. But in hindsight, you will realize that this is actually a gift. Because without your agenda, without trying to recruit anyone or advance your pet cause, you'll just be showing up, curious, lost, offering to help, and maybe, if you're lucky, genuinely curious. You can't organize strangers. And how can we become family if I don't even know your name? So, my name's Sean. Can I learn your name? So that we might cast out our strangeness just a little, because the pain of the world needs us to fight like family. So when I heard that sermon, that lecture, I was moved, and I wanted to share those words with you because I feel like they'll be resonant for this community as well. So I love going to GA. It's a chance to meet up with friends in person, to put faces to names I've known for a long time but have never seen, or see people I've only seen on Zoom screens, which is always shocking. I always think they're taller or shorter, and it's so cool to see they're an actual human. I had this one moment when I was in a workshop where I heard a voice behind me that I recognized, and when I turned around, it was the San Francisco minister, Reverend. When I get up here, I just forget names. Rebecca Southern, and she's one of my heroes. I listened to her sermons on her podcast. And to actually see her, I was fangirling. It was just so cool. So there's a lot of ways to do GA. Every morning, there are different worship sessions to choose from. And in the afternoon, there are workshops and business meetings. And I think when most of us hear news from GA, we hear about the business meetings, right? Especially last year, there was changes to Article 2 that were controversial. There was a resolution on the genocide happening in Gaza that got a lot of people talking. And business meetings are interesting, but I don't think that's the most interesting part of GA. So I will talk about the business meeting, partly because I was involved and I drafted one of the actions of immediate witness that got passed. But before I get there, I want to talk about where I spent a majority of my time at engaging in worship, because I think that's where the magic happens. Even though I love parliamentary procedures and resolutions, I don't think really that's where the magic happens. So every GA has a theme, and this year's theme was Meet the Moment. So I want us as a community to reflect on what that means. What does meet the moment really mean? So the first question we should ask ourselves is, what is the moment? And that can mean a lot of things, right? It could mean the issues of the day. What are we dealing with politically, as a culture, as a country, as a society? There's, of course, the administration's dismantling of the federal government. There's the targeting of immigrants, people of color, LGBTIQ folks, trans folks, the feeling that democracy is slipping, funding losses for human rights work. there's also this feeling, I think, in this moment that we need each other. You know, we're just a few years out of the pandemic when we were separated physically. We're feeling fear, and this is a time when people want to connect and build community and be in community. And it's a great time, I think, to invite people into our UU community, which is centered on love. So, what do you think this moment is? I'm just going to pause for a second for you to think about it. What does the moment mean? Then there's a related question. What are the most important and urgent needs and opportunities of the moment? So for some, of course, it will be safety. Safety for those that are, especially those being targeted. And for many UU communities, the most urgent need may be rethinking how we engage with each other as a community, how we worship, how we can improve, how we can meet the moment and form the communities that can respond to what's happening now instead of what was happening decades ago. And finally, the third question is, how are our UU values calling us to respond to this moment? So you may have your own responses. I think it's calling us to not be afraid to be that beloved community, to take risks, to not cede the ground of religion or what it means to be religious in a world where all we hear about when we hear religion is the religious right folks who are fueling a lot of the hate that we see everywhere. So, as I said, when it comes to GA, I love worship. And so every morning I was worshiping with people from around the country, around the world. And in those worship, I was engaging, but also kind of getting ideas. So I want to tell you about some of the worship sessions I attended. Well, first I want to tell you about one I didn't attend that I wish I did, because I heard about it after. There was a Star Wars themed worship church. Yeah. I think I should figure out how to recreate this. There's no video of this, but I'm sure I can piece together enough, and maybe we could do it here. But what I did hear is they light the chalice with a lightsaber. Okay, so we can do that and have Star Wars. Maybe we could wear costumes even. I think that would be super fun. Okay, that room, the Star Wars themed worship, was overflowing with people. I heard in the front row was the current UUA president and the immediate past president. And I also heard that the people who developed this idea of the Star Wars themed worship almost submitted it as a joke, thinking they'd never get approved, and they were, and they held it. So I just think that's really cool. I wish I could go back in time and attend it. The favorite worship session I actually did attend was the global worship service. So this was led with clergy from all over the world. The sermon was given by a Transylvanian minister who was absolutely amazing. Another message came from a Unitarian minister from northern India, where I didn't even know we had a Unitarian presence. Other participants were from Brazil. There are seminarians from the UK, and there's people from Kenya as well. And then they had a booth. There's exhibit hall where you can go to different booths. And so the people that were not from the US had their own booth, and they're sitting there, and you can go talk to them. So I went there just to meet people from around the world because I think it's fun. And I got to meet a woman from Melbourne Church and learned about all the Unitarian communities in Australia and New Zealand. And she gave me a list of them and their contact info. And I've already spoken at the Auckland Church. I did the Easter sermon there this year. So I got to know that community, which is a beautiful community. But there are several communities in Australia and another one in New Zealand. And I learned that all of them, except for one, are currently lay-led. So the Adeline Church in Australia has a minister, but the rest are lay-led. And I hope to visit them. And I think it would be really a dream someday for this church to be in community with them, because we have connections across the Pacific. Our time zones are not that different. They're just as different as they are to the continent, U.S. continent. So I think that's a possibility. So another worship that I attended that was really inspiring was the Christian worship session. And it was interesting because I found it in the beginning, some of the songs I recognized from my youth in Southern Baptist Church. So there was a little trauma that came up. I breathed through it. And then I saw people like raising their hands like you see these evangelical churches, and I thought, where am I? Yes. But it was actually great. And the same minister that gave the Foz lecture was the one who gave the sermon in the Christian worship service. And in the Christian worship service, the sermon was themed around the story of Jonah and the whale from the Old Testament, one of my favorite stories in the Hebrew Bible. And he talked about the difficulty he and his husband were facing with being foster parents to a very difficult foster son, and how they almost gave up, but the universe wouldn't let them, right? And then that story weaved with the Jonah story was just absolutely beautiful. And then at the end of that service, they did a traditional communion, which I have done recently, but never in a Unitarian Universalist community. So that was really cool to get the bread, dip it in the wine equivalent, hear the blessing. And then they also offered prayers. So you could, after you got your communion, you could go have an individualized prayer with one of the ministers. And that was just really touching. I enjoyed attending that worship session as well. So after the morning worship sessions, there are workshops, and you could choose different workshops. And there was a time when all of the workshops had that same theme, the theme of GA, meeting the moment. So what does it mean to meet the moment? And you could choose which ones you went to, and I went to the worship one because I wanted to know what it meant to meet the moment in worship. And there were 3 different sessions, and in each session there was questions posed, and we got into small groups, and we discussed that question with each other. And I'd like to share some of those questions, and I'll paraphrase and reword some of the questions, but I want you to think about how you might answer them, because I think it's telling, and maybe you can think about your future worship. So the first question is, what was the first time in your life when you felt the magic of a worship session, when you really felt moved? And I want you to think about the very first time, and it may be when you were a child, and maybe in a completely different spiritual space or religious space. So what was the first time for you? Let's think about that for a second. So many of the answers that I heard centered around ritual, centered around events, or other forms of embodied worship. So a theme I'll get to again. I talked about the time, so I don't know if you know in Baptist churches, especially in the Southern Baptist tradition, as a child, you're expected to feel the call and to walk up in front of the entire congregation and say, I felt the call to be baptized. I did that around 9 or 10. And to be honest, that was really the first time I felt the magic of worship, and went up in front of the congregation, and then later on was baptized. And it was an embodied time. People from around the congregation come and support you, congratulate you, and then you go through the ceremony, the actual ceremony of being baptized. But there are lots of different answers I heard to that. Then the next question was, this is the second day where we're talking about challenges. What are some of the challenges facing your church community now as it relates to worship specifically? So think about that for a second. How might you answer? So again, with here, I heard a lot of different answers. In my group, there were ministers and lay people. I heard fear of change, changing anything in the worship service. From people in lay-led communities, I heard consistency of speakers and how that was a challenge facing them. I heard that people were struggling with portions of worship they wanted to improve on. Some of them talked about investing in music or wanting to have more rituals. And I know you're going through a process now of determining what's next for this community. So think about what your answer might be, and maybe after service, this is something, or what do you think is a challenge for worship services here? So I learned a lot in that session. In each session, they had videos from the Meet the Moment program. Those are all available online. So if you're interested in some of the videos that every session saw on Meet the Moment or what Meet the Moment is, you can find those on YouTube. So the most exciting update I want to share with you as regards to worship is about the new Sing Out Love virtual hymnal that's going to be released soon. And I know some of you have heard about this, right? So it's a new UUA hymnal, which we've needed for a very long time. I love those great hymnals, but they haven't been updated in a while. And it'll include a lot of contemporary, new, uplifting songs, as well as many of the songs that are in the existing hymnal that we've grown to love. But here's the difference. Instead of purchasing a hard copy hymnal like you normally would, it's going to be like an app, so it would be subscription-based. So there's fees anywhere from monthly to 3 years, and that will be used to pay for the license fees for all of the songs. And also it allows them to continually update. So it's going to be a living, growing, breathing hymnal, which I think is really cool. The team that put this hymnal together took great care in selecting the songs. They asked for submissions, they got submissions, and then they posted the questions that they asked themselves when they decided which songs to choose for this hymnal. I want to share some of those questions. I think it's important. They asked, how is this song, how infused is the hymn's text with the wisdom of UU faith and other faith traditions? How does this piece affect my body? Does it inspire me to dance, to move, to march, to meditate? Is the tune singable? And how accessible is it? I think that one's a really important question to ask. How does this piece move me emotionally? How does this piece encourage, deepen, or expand my connection with myself, with others, with the mystery, with earth? How does this hymn foster compassion and empathy, or generosity, or joy? How worshipful, sacred, or holy is the piece? Or how purposeful and inspiring is the piece? So I think those are important questions to ask when you're putting together a new hymnal. And I heard some of the music. They did a preview of some of the music, and it's really exciting. The music is different. It's contemporary. It's easier to sing. A lot of the songs are just easier to sing. Some of them are just a few verses long. So there's going to be a variety of things to choose from. So when you get your subscription, it comes with the normal licensing rights for worship, including the rights to use the song in services, produce PDF copies. But here's the best part. Each song comes with 3 key things. One, of course, is the PDF of the sheet music, so your musician can play it. But there's also going to be an MP3, so you can actually hear the song and learn the song by listening to it. Especially, that's going to be important for the new songs that you've never heard before. So you don't have to depend just on your musician playing it right. You can listen to it and learn the music. And then this is going to be great for tech folks. They all come with PowerPoint slides of lyrics, so you can just slide those into your deck. You don't have to recreate new PowerPoint slides for the songs. It's a great advancement. So I think overall, the message that I got from both being in the worship sessions and being in the workshops regarding worship is that our worship is evolving from a tradition that's rooted in the power of words. And if you think about it, Unitarian Universalism is very, very word-based. We have covenants, we have sermons, we have texts and readings, into something that's more holistic and more transformative. I believe we're awakening to worship that doesn't just reach our minds, but ignites our entire being. So picture worship that flows through your body and stirs your spirit and opens every part of you to encounter the divine. As an aside, I was in one of these worship workshops with somebody from my Los Angeles church who's African American, and she said, I think this is Black church. And she's like, this is what I've wanted. I wanted UU spaces to feel like that. So I think the future of UU worship will involve crafting experiences where the sacred energy moves through gesture and breath, movement and stillness, and your whole self feels the energy in the room and feels the spirit. So embodied worship is about feeling it pulse through your veins, letting it transform you inside and out. So exciting developments. So now I'll move to the business part of the agenda, because I can't talk about GA without talking about the business. So there's two interesting things to talk about here. We chose a congressional study action issue and 3 actions of immediate witness. So I'll talk about what those are. So first, a congressional study action issue is a topic that's chosen by the association for congregations to study together over several years, combining theological reflection with social action. There were 3 that were proposed this year, only 1 gets to pass. There was justice for fat individuals, there was one on housing, and there was one on abolition. So the CSAIs, because they're meant to help us deepen an understanding of important issues while working for justice in our communities, one thing that was emphasized in a lot of the discussion and the more formal testimony on each of these is we really should choose something, a topic that we are not in all agreement on. So some of the people that gave comments on the housing one said, well, we all kind of agree on housing. We should choose something that'll make us think and explore and struggle. So the 2025 CSAI that was chosen is entitled Abolition, Transformation, and Faith Formation. It was sponsored by the Church of the Larger Fellowship. So because this is chosen over the next few years, congregations are going to study this in a few areas. The first is UU theology and abolition. And this means we're going to examine our beliefs about sin and redemption, what it means to say that every person has inherent worth, especially in relation to those who cause harm or are accused of wrongdoing. We're going to study historical connections, learning about UU abolitionists who fought slavery in the 19th century and connecting their unfinished work then to modern prison abolition movements. And then we're going to study transformative justice, exploring alternatives to punishment-based responses to conflict, including restorative justice practices and truth and reconciliation. So as you can tell, this is a complex issue. It's a complex issue which not everyone's going to have agreement, which is why it's going to require several years of study. And I think it'll be interesting for us to get deep on this topic without knowing what the outcome's going to be. So finally, let's talk about actions of immediate witness. So an action of immediate witness, or AIW, is a statement of a significant action or event that's happening today, a development in the world that necessitates immediate engagement and action among UU member congregation groups. It's something that's proposed by congregations and something that's voted on for congregations to act on. And this is relatively new in our UUA history. It's only been since 1997 AIWs have existed. And it really focuses us on social justice causes that are timely. So there were 5 proposed, 3 made it to the GA, and we adopted all 3. So the first one was, we declare and affirm immigrants are people who have inherent worth and inalienable rights. The second is faithful defiance of authoritarianism, a call to action, reaffirming our covenants for democracy and freedom. And the third is defending LGBTIQ plus freedom amid the funding crisis, a call for global solidarity. So I want to talk about that last one for a bit because I wrote it. I think it's really cool. And the Los Angeles Church sponsored it, along with our partner organization, Outright International. So the impetus behind this action of immediate witness is that the administration has taken away all funding, all US funding from international LGBTIQ rights work, and it's having a deadly and devastating impact worldwide. So over $100 million in 1 year is gone. And that's due not just to the US funding cuts, but also there were cuts from the Netherlands, who was a big funder of this, and private donors. So it's all happening at once. So as a result, local organizations in countries that are having the most difficult time with these issues, like Uganda, Ukraine, organizations in Southeast Asia, are shutting down and can't offer the services that they used to offer and keep people safe. And so some of the most vulnerable people around the world are at risk in these countries. And these organizations in these countries don't have domestic funding mechanisms like we do here in the United States. And so Outright International, which is an international LGBTIQ human rights organization that is now focused on fundraising to fill in the gaps that have been left by the US and the Netherlands. And I'm hoping this AIW will inspire churches to talk about this issue, talk about what's happening worldwide, and also to include Outright in their Share the Plate program. So that's what happened at business meetings. Everything else was so uncontroversial, it's not worth discussing, just bylaw amendments. But it was really fun. It was really fun to advocate for one of the AIWs to go up on the virtual stage and speak to the entire UUA. So let me conclude by asking, what does it mean to meet the moment? I think this year's General Assembly showed us that meeting the moment isn't just about responding to the crises around us, though we definitely must do that. It's about showing up with our whole selves, our mind, our body, our spirits, our action. It's about worship that doesn't just speak to our intellects, but moves through our bodies. It's about community that spans continents and connects us across the Pacific, across the world. It's about a love that's risky enough to foster children, bold enough to defend the most vulnerable, and transformative enough to imagine abolition. The moment we're in calls for exactly this kind of response. We can't meet authoritarianism with just our minds or build beloved community through words alone. We need an embodied way of being with each other in community, of being in worship that prepares us for embodied justice. So our three actions of immediate witness aren't separate, I think, from what was taught earlier in the day, our evolution in worship, but they're part of the same movement. When we defend immigrants and when we defend LGBTIQ communities, we're living out the same embodied faith that lights chalices with lightsabers. This is our moment, not just to respond, but to transform to the time, to meet the moment, to be here in the moment, and not to just speak our values, but to sing them, to dance them, to live them. And with all the magic that happens at GA, the magic doesn't end there. It begins when we share what inspired us with our communities and share about our connected and courageous faith. And I just want to thank you for allowing me to do that with you today. I want to leave you with a couple questions. How will you meet the moment? How will we together become the beloved community that this island, that this state, that this world needs? Because now is not the time to sit on the sidelines. Our work continues. And we must tell ourselves and each other and this community that we are not alone. We are in this together. We are here together. May it be so. Thank you.
Wow. Keola brings such energy and light. Thank you so much. And now we'll sing Come Sing a Song With Me. Yes, stand if you are able. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Sing, dream, come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know you're mine. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I might know you're mine. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know you're mine. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Thank you. And now we'll have our collection. Yes, please.
So we share our plate with a recipient, a different recipient every month. And this month we're sharing the plate with RISE, Residential Youth Services and Empowerment, an organization in Kailua that helps folks, kids from 14 to 24 who need our help. So please be generous. Thank you.
There are many ways to give. You can scan the QR code and select the donation for RISE, or give your pledge, or you can donate into the calabash. So thank you all for your generosity. Now we'll sing our giving and receiving song. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. And for your donations, we are truly thankful. And now, as Keola extinguishes the chalice, I'll read this chalice extinguishing and benediction. Go in peace, embraced by the light and warmth of our gathering. Go in love, ready again to struggle on. Go in beauty, shining forth like a lamp for freedom. Amen. And are there any announcements today?
So Suzette is still on vacation, so we will not have a newsletter this week. So let me tell you that our speaker next week will be from the ACLU, talking about immigration here in the state of Hawaii and the challenges that we're facing. So I hope to see all of you next week. Thanks.
And one other announcement, we will be honoring Sylvia Himeda, our longtime child care person, and she will be retiring, and so we'll be honoring her next week. Okay, and our last song is our Song of Peace, Now Let Us Sing. And please ask if it's okay to take hands.